Hi everyone, my name is Kevin Whitman, and I am an accountability coordinator here at the State Department of Education. In this vignette, I will be discussing the data that won't be updated on the school report card in August 2020 because of the disruptions caused by COVID-19. There is also a separate vignette that covers the data that will be updated. To begin, let's review some basic facts about the school report card. As you probably know, you can access the school report card at idahoschools.org. Every school, district, and the state as a whole have profile pages on the report card with information on a multitude of indicators, such as academic achievement, academic growth, group achievement, student engagement, teacher experience, and school finance. However, during the 2019-2020 school year, there was some data that we could not capture, so the measures you will see reported will look a little different. Let's discuss some of the items that will not be updated this year. Let's start with the academic indicators. With the COVID-19 disruptions, Idaho canceled the summative ISAT administration that would have occurred in the spring of 2020. These tests are the source of the ISAT proficiency rates for ELA literacy, math, and science that we normally report. The proficiency rate summarizes the percent of students whose scores indicate that they are meeting or exceeding grade level standards for the listed content area. These are the students scoring at level 3 or level 4, also called proficient or advanced, on their ISAT score reports. Since we don't have those test results this year, the report card won't be updated to include ISAT proficiency rates for 2020. As with all of our measures though, anywhere where we present historical data, we will keep that information. Idaho also faced disruptions with the spring IRI administration, which is our early reading assessment for students in kindergarten through 3rd grade. These results are reported using 3 tiers, and on the report card, we normally present the percent of students who are at Tier 1, also called at grade level, using the proficiency heading. Although the spring IRI administration remained a statutory requirement in 2020, there wasn't a statewide standardized administration. Therefore, data from a spring 2020 IRI administration will not be shown. Additionally, since we use the spring results to calculate a fall to spring change measure for the IRI, we won't be updating that component either. As we talked about a few minutes ago, the summative ISAT assessments were not administered in the spring of 2020. That not only affects the updating of proficiency rates, but also the updating of student growth measures shown in the student progress section of the report card. Our academic growth measure is the percent of students who are on track for proficiency 3 years in the future in ELA literacy and math. To calculate that percent, we compare a student's scale score from one year to the next. Since data was not collected in spring of 2020, we cannot calculate student academic growth between 2019 and 2020. One other item you will see on our school report card is group achievement. As a user, you can compare the results between different student groups. For example, students with disabilities and students without disabilities on a few measures. Normally, you would see results for ISAT proficiency and growth in these comparisons. However, since we don't have these data for 2020, the group comparisons will also not have updated data for these measures. We also have a college and career readiness page on the report card. The first measure on the page is the percent of students meeting college readiness benchmarks. These results are based on the performance of juniors on the SAT School Day Administration. The SAT School Day Administration did not occur in spring of 2020, but has been moved to the fall of 2020. So these results will not be updated this summer. We may report them later, but that has not yet been decided. In the non-academic indicators, Idaho reports data on student, parent, and staff engagement. We collect these data using surveys that are provided in the late winter and early spring. The window for these surveys opened prior to the COVID-19 closures, but those disruptions occurred simultaneously with the last couple of weeks in which the surveys were scheduled. We reviewed the data that we did have available, and since it was incomplete, we will not be presenting it on the report card. However, we do hope that districts and schools can still use their results locally using the eProof system. Thank you for taking the time to listen. If you are interested, you may also find it useful to view our separate presentation on the data we will update in 2020. Again, my name is Kevin Whitman. If you have any questions about school accountability or reporting, please feel free to contact me at any time.